Salve amigos do Futebol em Destaque! O jornalista inglês Tim Vickery diz na TV inglesa que os brasileiros estavam chorando para enfrentar os europeus.
So they've been crying out, they and the other South American nations have been crying out for more opportunities to play European teams.
E ele também classifica Dorival como um técnico exclusivamente nacional e o maior desafio dele será comandar jogadores badalados como Vinicius Jr e Rodrigo.
His big task, he's got to win over the likes of Vinicius Jr and Rodrigo and the Premier League players.
Então fica aí até o final e você confere todos os detalhes a partir de agora.
We can look through the long lens or the close lens. Let's look through the long lens first. Brazil last won the World Cup in 2002. Every campaign since then has ended when they've come up against the European side in the knockout stage. Over the last few years, a little bit because of the pandemic, but principally because of Europe's Nations League, just haven't been dates for the South Americans to play European opposition. And since Russia 2018, Brazil have come to Europe one game against the Czech Republic in 2019. So they've been crying out, they and the other South American nations have been crying out for more opportunities to play European teams. Now the rapprochement between UEFA and CONMEBOL, which is South America's UEFA, brought about the Finalissimo, that game at Wembley where Argentina saw off Italy. And it's also meant that this FIFA date has been established specifically really for the South Americans to have a chance to play against the Europeans. So we've got lots of games going on. Colombia are against Spain and against Romania. Ecuador face Italy. That's their first friendly against European opposition since they faced England in a warm-up for the 2014 World Cup.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
So that's the long lens. They want practice against European opposition. The shorter lens, this has come at an awkward time for Brazil. We're 6 rounds into World Cup qualification. Brazil are in 6th place. This is unprecedented. They've lost 3 games on the bounce. It's a brand new coach, Dorival Jr, coming in. He's spent a long career as player, as coach, exclusively in Brazil. So this is a big test for him. And there are easier places to start your career as an international coach than against England and against Spain.
Yeah, absolutely right. Tell us a little bit more about Dorival and how he's got to the place that he's got to now, because there has been a fair turnover of managers, hasn't
Yes, there has. Dorival, he's that kind of guy who's easy to underestimate. He was often seen as a kind of short-term fix. I don't find him particularly inspiring, frankly. When he speaks, sometimes he reminds me of a kind of Soviet apparatchik explaining away disappointing production figures. But that's part of it. He's low ego. There's not a lot of ego there with Dorival. And that means that over his career, he's been able to bend his ideas to the talent at his disposal. Now, his big task, and this is more important, I think, than the results against England or Spain next week. His big task, he's got to win over the likes of Vinicius Jr and Rodrigo and the Premier League players. He's got to win them over. He's got to show them that he's not just a coach of Brazilian domestic football, that he can go global.
Let's talk about one player in particular, Richarlison, back in the squad, very candidly saying that therapy saved his life. Give us the picture again back in Brazil. Did people then know how much he was suffering? How much is this talked about, this issue in Brazil?
Well, you know, Brazil, when they won the World Cup for the first time in 1958, they took a sports psychologist. That's how open they were. He was absolutely useless. He recommended that Pele's got to be dropped. He was useless. But it shows how open-minded they were to this. And it is frequent, the use of sports psychologists, but usually collectively.
Right.
An individual, and football people don't like to open up with their weaknesses. It's a very competitive environment. So Richarlison has been extremely brave to do this, and whatever gets him goals, it works.
Yeah, and culturally in Brazil, is that something that is really respected? Is it something that is sort of a bit quizzical look, you know, when someone comes out and is quite so personal, quite so open?
I think there's less resistance to it than there is in this country.
Okay.
Go a little bit further south, Argentina, Buenos Aires, it has more psychologists per square metre than any place in the world.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a nice excuse to talk about themselves, I think.
Yeah. In terms of, you know, Brazil and this squad, you know, we're saying that the coach is someone who has, you know, not the greatest of track record so far. He's still establishing himself in the game and, you know, certainly at this level. What about the squad? I mean, 18 of the players have 5 or fewer caps. So obviously the next question to ask is which of these are going to be catching the eye that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, it's tough for the coach because he's lost so much experience with people pulling out. He's lost the 2 goalkeepers, Ederson and Alisson. He's lost the 2 centre-backs, Marquinhos and Gabriel Magalhães. He's lost Casemiro. So he you know...
That spine is looking a bit different, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So this game, I think, it's going to be important for the midfielders. The fullbacks, some of them are not great defensively. Who's going to balance out that team? It's probably going to be a first cap for João Gomes of Wolves, who worked very successfully with Dorival Jr. At Flamengo a couple of years ago. He was the lung power that balanced out that Flamengo side. I think it's a really important match for him, maybe for Douglas Luiz as well. We're going to find out a lot about those Brazilian central midfielders in this game. The one I think that everyone wants to see is the next wonder kid off the production line, who is 17-year-old Endrick. And he is special. Stocky little left-footed striker. You wouldn't really see him as a natural centre forward. He has played there. He can also play a little bit off, but there is real talent there. There is speed, and also that wonderful calm in front of goal. The finisher who looks like he's passing the ball into the back.
Just the utter composure of it all.
He's got that about him.
Yeah.
I found out something. Which I thought was he was a key figure last year when his team Palmeiras won the Brazilian Championship, and one of the opposing centre-backs said, "You know what he does during the game? He sings. He sings away to himself." I had a chat with him a couple of months ago. I said, "What do you sing?" He wouldn't give me the repertoire. I don't know. So maybe after Saturday's game, the England players can tell us what Endrick has been singing.
Well, we'll find out. I mean, again, it's that sense of, I suppose, all.
E você, concorda com o jornalista inglês? Eu quero ouvir a sua opinião. Deixe aqui nos comentários. Se gostou, curta para receber mais vídeos como esse. Não deixe de se inscrever no nosso canal e até a próxima.